Go. And you're on the lifeboat. And I'll tell you something, peeps. I'm not kidding when I say that this is going to be the most important video that I've ever done. If you've never shared one, you can share it now. You can share it when it's over. But if ever I have done a video that you need to share, I promise you when I tell you that this is the video. And did a lot of research on this one, people, and this is going to get your attention. So, we're all drug addicts. The vast majority of us. Not everybody. I took a couple of comments today from people who said they love the channel. They don't have any problem with addiction. I think that's great. But the vast majority of us have been addicted to a substance. And there's a lot of baggage that goes along with being addicted to a substance. There's also a sort of expanding of the mind that we have that other people don't. There's insight that we have that other people don't. Obviously the stuff when you think of a drug addict, the things that you think of first are all bad, right? We lied, we stole, we did whatever. We almost destroyed our lives. We hurt the people around us. All of those things that we associate. Alan Ballantyne, glad you're here. All of the things that we associate with drug addiction. Vicky Brooke, good to see you. Glad that you're here, Vicky. Really am. However, there's also a really big eye-opening. Addiction gives you insight into addiction. If nothing else, it gives you a PhD in addiction, right? Whether you're addicted to alcohol or whether you're addicted to cocaine, it does not matter. Summer, glad you're here. It doesn't matter what you're addicted to. We understand your addiction because of the fact, sorry peeps, because of the fact that all addictions live in the same part of the brain and they all work the same way, more or less, much more than less. We all sort of have an insight that the other people on this planet, the normies, don't have. And for that reason, this video is probably going to be a little bit more intense for some of us than it will be for a normie. This is going to make sense to you in ways that it probably doesn't with other people. And I think that that's a pretty important distinction going forward, and I'll hammer that point home at the end. But what it really comes down to is this: if this is something that you understand, if this is something that makes sense to you, if this is something that doesn't need any explanation other than me talking to you, then there's probably going to be a bit of added weight on your shoulders that we need to do something. I have done videos in the past where I talked about our kids being in danger, and it was almost always about drugs. It's kind of what we do here. This is not necessarily that show. The vast majority of what I'm going to be talking about today isn't necessarily drug related. Christine, good to see you. But we're going to start off talking about dopamine. Dopamine is a huge part of our life. Everybody on this boat understands dopamine a whole lot more than most people do. For those that do not, we live with a baseline of dopamine in our body at all times, right? It's called the baseline. Baseline dopamine. That's what keeps you feeling somewhat happy most of the time, right? Now, there's other chemicals that do that. In fact, more often than not, people talk about serotonin as being something that really keeps you content. And there is a good deal of research to suggest that that is serotonin's job. Whereas dopamine is more of the novelty and, exciting stuff. Like you're heading down into something really, really cool. That's usually when dopamine kicks in. Right? So sex is a big one, right? There are certain things that really trip dopamine receptors in the brain. But at all times, we live at a base level. And it's important to talk about the base level because we're going to be talking about base level times what, if that makes sense. All right? So let's say you eat a piece of chocolate. People call that comfort food. You ever heard that term? Well, it's comfort food. Or mom's chili or whatever, right? It's comfort food. Whatever it is it's comfort food for a reason. When we eat chocolate, there's a fantastic book, if you've never come across it or never read it, it's called Chocolate to Heroin. It's a fascinating study by somebody that really did a deep dive into dopamine and what it does in the body. But if you eat a piece of chocolate, you're going to get a dopamine hit, and it's the wrong term. And it's a term, believe it or not, that was born in Silicon Valley, and we're going to talk about that. But it's a term born in Silicon Valley, the dopamine hit. You get a flash. Now you have your normal dopamine level, whatever it is. Mine will not equal yours. Yours will not equal anyone else's, right? Everybody's dopamine level is different, baseline. And it is based on what you've done in the last month. It's based on your lifestyle. It's based on a lot of different things that are unique to each individual, right? So I use Alan Ballantyne a lot as an example on this boat for a couple of reasons. Number one, we're really good friends and we talk all the time. The other reason is he does everything we talk about, right? Not everybody journals. Not everybody goes out and walks. Not everybody's exercising. Not everybody's eating right, right? Alan has literally adopted the lifeboat dogma, the stuff that we talk about is a part of every single day of his life. And I would be willing to put any amount of money on the fact that his dopamine baseline is better than ours. No other way to put it. You can manipulate your dopamine level. Believe it or not, people, they say that sleep, tell me if any of this stuff sounds familiar. They say that sleep, eating, right? Knowing triggers, all of these things that we talk about all the time is a way to maintain a level of a bit higher baseline level of dopamine. So is walking. So is journaling, right? Because when we journal, we tend to talk about things, they come out in two ways. Either things that really bother us or things that really make us happy. And very often we take something and we highlight the part of it that makes us feel good. That can elevate the base level of your dopamine. So if you go out and you run 5 miles a day, and when you get home you go, man, I hate running. I can't stand running. I mean, the payout's good, but I hate it. I hate everything about it. You're not going to raise your baseline level. The brain is so phenomenal a device that it's not just about the exercise. It's about what your brain takes that in and makes out of it, how it interprets that. If every night you wrote down, I ran today, and seeing the change in scenery, getting the air in my lungs, and you start talking about that stuff, right? Your brain is going to go, this guy digs the running, right? This is huge. So as you're lacing your shoes up in the morning to go out and run, the dopamine level is already starting to rise and it doesn't go down. Exercise, right? Drinking a ton of water. There's a lot of things we can do to elevate that dopamine level. Got news for you. The higher that dopamine level is, the less you're going to want to mess with it. Doing drugs, right? Gambling. All of the stuff that we do that's not healthy behavior for us. Not normies, but for the normal, for us. The people on the boat. We want to elevate that level so that our baseline is always higher than it is, right? If we can keep elevating our baseline of dopamine, we're going to be happier people with a much lower risk of relapse. But you eat a piece of chocolate. It is going to raise your baseline dopamine 1.5 times. Not 1.5%, people. 1.5 times. 1.5 times. Now, is it going to last long? No. It'll last a different length of time for you than it does for me, than it does for Alan, than it does for Pagan, than it does for Buddha. It doesn't matter. Everybody is built differently. But everybody, even if you say, I don't like chocolate, it's not going to do that for me. You're damn right it is. There's something about chocolate that gives you a dopamine spike. Now, if you like it, it might even be a little bit higher. But they're saying across the board, chocolate is a 1.5 times dopamine spike. Okay? Sex, you would think, boy, if chocolate's 1.5, sex has got to be 4, right? 2. Sex is a 2-time dopamine spike. It's going to raise the baseline level of your dopamine twice. Now, got to do it for a longer period of time than chocolate is. And the pursuit of it will also do that. So you meet somebody and you're doing that chase. That's why when we feel like, you just meet somebody and you're so excited about it and you're like, oh man, it's love at first sight and this person means the world to me. The entire time that chase is going on, your dopamine level is going to be raised as much as 2 times its normal baseline. All right, is this making sense? Okay, good. Nicotine. For those of you who have smoked, we all know chain smokers, right? Who go one right after the other. They take the cigarette to light the next cigarette, and you go, man, how does a person smoke that much, right? It's almost frightening when you see how much people smoke. We've told the story on the lifeboat before, but Johnny and I knew a guy who wouldn't fly on an airplane because it would be 2 hours without a cigarette. And on a road trip from Texas to Boston, Massachusetts, On that entire road trip, he smoked a little over a carton of cigarettes with one match. When you smoke a cigarette, nicotine gets into you in different ways, right? It's very high in tomatoes and eggplant and all kinds of stuff. But when you smoke it, when you inhale it, which is the fastest delivery system you can get into the human body, trust me on this one, don't argue. The lungs will get it into you faster than a needle will. The fastest delivery system into the body is the lungs. So, especially for drugs. So it's 2.5 times baseline. Nicotine is going to raise your dopamine levels 2.5 times whatever your base level is. And it's going to go straight up and it's going to go straight down. And this is why people say cigarettes are more addicting than heroin. You hear that all the time. Heroin addicts go, whatever, because we're not thinking about the addiction. We're thinking about the kick. You follow? We're thinking about what it means when we don't have it. But as far as it getting you and addicting you in, what out there is going to raise your dopamine level 2.5 times on one inhale? Cigarettes. Not much else. Cigarettes will do that. Okay, the next one we're going to be talking about is cocaine. Cocaine is 2.5 times, so more than sex, 2.5 times base level. Again, not long lasting. About 15 to 30 minutes depending on the individual. But it's going to take you straight up and it's going to take you straight down, which is why cocaine is so addicting. You understand the concept. You do a line and you're like, oh man, right? Woohoo! You are 2.5 times your dopamine level, your normal dopamine level. You're ready to take on the world. You think you're smarter, you think you're faster, you think you're better looking, right? You just feel cool for 15 to 30 minutes. Then you need another line. And this gets the repetitive thing going. Your brain also then goes, I'm used to that. Been there, done that, right? Then it starts to raise at about 1.5. So instead of doing that line, you got to do 2 because you want to get back to that first feeling. And this is why drug addicts always say nothing's better than the first line of Coke. What they really mean is the second line of Coke doesn't get it done. They don't mean that nothing is better than that. They just mean that it's the only good one. Because after that, we're just chasing it. And you understand that if it spikes you 2.5 times on the first line, and here's your baseline of dopamine, it doesn't take you back to your baseline. It takes you below your baseline. So by the 10th line of Coke, you're snorting it to get to your baseline of dopamine. You're not even getting high. And this is the addiction process. This is why you have to continually do more and more and more to get the same result with many drugs on the market, and cocaine is one of the biggest for that. Exercise. Exercise is going to be 2 to 3, depending on the type of exercise, and depending on whether or not you enjoy it. Like I was talking about earlier, if you hate exercise and you go and you do it anyway, you're not going to get that dopamine hit. If you're sitting there the whole time cursing about it, well, it's worth the payout. You know what I mean? Like, I'll do this. I don't like it. I hate it, but I'm going to do it because you're not going to get any dopamine. Can you change that? You can. Guess how? Pen and piece of paper. You start journaling about the things that you enjoy from exercise, and you can actually make it so that things that you normally don't enjoy, you're going to have the opportunity to get a dopamine rush out of if you begin to concentrate on and you're not going to juke the brain, but you can train it, if that makes sense, right? There's got to be something in there you like. You just can't hate doing it and write, I love running. That's not going to work. But if you highlight the things about running that really make you feel good, I love getting out of the house. I've seen parts of the neighborhood I never see, right? And you're journaling and writing this stuff down because now you're engaging every part of the brain you can, right? You got the memory thing kicking in, you got the frontal lobes because you got to write it down, and all of these things are coming together. The next time you go and do that exercise, you're going to raise how much that's giving you. Alan Ballantyne and I talked today for a long time, and he was talking about the morning walk. And he said, when it's done, he just feels like $1 million. And he said, when he goes to sleep at night and he's journaling, because he journals, he's thinking about the morning walk already. And now he's timing how long it takes him to do each mile, and he's just really leisure. Good to see you. I mean, Rip Curl, good leisure. Good to see you too. Awakened by the Looking Glass. Stacy Michaels. He gets fired up about the day that's coming. Paula, good to see you too. It's a huge thing for him. And the more you write about it, the more you think about it, the more it's going to give you. Do you understand? The brain can be trained. How about methamphetamines? 10 times base level. 10 times base level. You think that's addicting? You're going to take a substance that is 10 times base level. And dopamine, because dopamine is going to, like I said, it's going to be the suspense, the novelty, right? That's what dopamine does. It targets things that you get excited about. The term tweak, I know some people don't like hearing that, but the term tweaking means concentrating on something beyond belief, right? You do methamphetamine and you're like, you laser focus in on whatever it is you're doing, and there's no way to stop, right? It becomes an obsessive compulsive thing when you're on it. Why? Because you got so much damn dopamine coursing through your body that there's no chance of you not hyper focusing on whatever it is you're doing. What if what you're doing is sex? Well, now you have something that multiplies the baseline times 2, but you've already multiplied the baseline times 10, right? So we're talking about a very intense thing. And most people who are addicted to meth are also addicted to sex on meth. It's a very big thing for addicts. Trouble becomes, what's sex going to be like when you stop doing that? It's going to be boring. So will a doctor handing you your child, which should be about baseline times 5. Now, get rid of meth, and did I say anything else that's going to get you a baseline times 5? No. Because there's nothing in the normal world that's going to get you there. Jumping out of an airplane, right? Doing extreme skiing where you hop off a 120-foot cliff with skis on. That'll get you running, right? But that's not dopamine. That's adrenaline, right? When we talk about straight, just dopamine, right? And when we talk about adrenaline, what is it? It's epinephrine. Epinephrine, right? Which is the brain chemical that we all call adrenaline. Though there's a lot of ways to get these feelings, but when we're talking about dopamine, and it's important because none of this is what I'm talking about. I'm leading up to where we're in deep trouble. But I want you to understand this dopamine stuff. 7 times baseline for heroin. So you say, so then heroin's not more addicting than trouble is this. When you do heroin, it stays at baseline times 7 for a really, really long time. It bleeds the dopamine out in for a long time. You're staying at that baseline times 7, and it's really hooking itself in, right? And then you don't just get sober, you get sick. So you go from baseline. Now, the longer you do it, the less of that dopamine hit, right? That's not what you're going to be getting. Not to the level that you were getting it. So by the end, what are we doing? We're shooting dope to try to get to the baseline we started at. And we're shooting a bunch of dope to try to just get normal. When you hear addicts go, I haven't been high in 5 years, people are like, yeah, whatever, right? The normies think that's junkie speak. But it's the truth. You're not getting high anymore. That stopped a long time ago. Now, if this thing had bourbon in it, when it touches the lips, your baseline times 2. Now, not for a normie. The normies don't feel that. Even a heroin addict isn't going to feel that. But somebody with alcohol abuse disorder is going to feel that the second it touches their lips. If you've ever seen somebody that's been addicted to alcohol for 30, 40, 50 years of abusive stuff, they go like this. There's an affectation where they lick their lips all day long. And you may not notice it in the real world because you don't run into those kind of people very often in the real world. Go to a county jail lockup and you will see 15 old men walking around licking their lips all day long, and they're literally licking for that feeling. It's insidious. It's insidious what dopamine can do when it's not being used the way that it's supposed to. It borders on terrifying. It really does. So now we have some kind of baseline level for what dopamine does, right? We have an idea of normal, in the life kind of dopamine versus what it can do with drugs, right? So I have talked on this channel incessantly about trying to protect our kids because the drugs out there today are so much stronger and so much more poisonous than anything we ever did. It's all I've talked about. But I got news for you. Do you know what the number one addiction on this planet is? I have said so many times, food is the number one addiction on this planet. Overeating. Well, I'm wrong. I'm not even close. This bad boy right here is a drug. Before you go, yeah, no, I think, I'm not giving you an opinion. This is a drug. This will do exactly what any drug in the world will do. Social media was designed by some really intelligent people. There's a quote that's becoming quite famous of somebody that said, the greatest minds of our generation are trying to get you to figure out how to click on something. Sad, but true. The smartest people out there, all they're doing is trying to get you to click on to something. This, people, is more addicting than anything on the planet because it was intended to be. When they built social media, they sat around. The term dopamine hit came directly from Silicon Valley, right? They talked about it. Okay, we gotta do something to reinforce the behavior. Okay, so if you've got a rat in a cage, or if you're doing any kind of experiment and you're looking down at an animal, what would happen if you saw an animal and you had it in a cage or in a little room or a box or whatever, and it was in the corner and it was digging, right? Picture a dog, right? Or picture a cat or any animal you want. Let's go with a dog. And it's in the corner just digging, looking like it's trying to get a bone. Nothing there, no bone, but it just continues to dig and it continues to dig and it continues to dig. If you were observing that from above, what would you say? That animal's sick. There's something wrong with that animal. We're that animal. Do you understand? We're that animal. And I'll explain what I mean. They designed this so that when people hit like, when people you put the notifications on your phone, right? And you post something on Instagram, and you've got the notification, you hear ding, 2.5 baseline. You are going to get a dopamine hit that is 2.5 times baseline. And that was by design. The likes were to reinforce the behavior and keep you on your device. The problem became, who decides all of this stuff, right? It was insidious when it was a couple of college kids that were putting together Facebook. It was insidious. Now we have artificial intelligence that is driving this, and it's smarter than all of us are. The problem is this. It also has to make decisions about morality. Artificial intelligence cannot make a decision about morality unless you put parameters in. So who is determining what the morality is? And I want to tell you something, people. When I take this video later and I look at the analytics of this video, when I start talking about this, I'm going to watch it dive. I promise you. People are going to bail when I start talking about this phone. You know why? They don't want to hear it. They don't. Because they got this thing in their hand all damn long. I mean, all day, damn day long. They know it. It's in their hands all day. You been on an airplane? Huh? You ever seen the wheels hit the ground? And 280 people go like this, like it's a quick draw in a Western movie. Every single person in that airplane has that phone in their hand, and they're turning it on illegally before they even have a chance for the wheels to stop rolling. Why? Because they designed it to be addicting. And they've come out, in congressional hearings, they've come out and said, you know what, we made a mistake. Try putting a genie back in the bottle. We're done. So the artificial intelligence that's making decisions about things like what is morality were designed by who? Who determined what morality is? You know what your job is as a human being? To help your kids figure out what morality is. Or you can give them one of these and let somebody who you don't know determine what morality is. Right? Let someone else do it. What difference does it make? Let me tell you the big fear, people. Let me tell you where we got big, big problems. I am 50-something, right? My brother Johnny is 50-something. We were talking today on the telephone. When we were growing up, we had television. And the previous generation said what? Television's going to ruin this generation. They're the worst ever, right? Before that, people said radio is going to be the death of everybody. It's going to ruin that. You know what the difference between all that is? Because there are people listening to me right now who are going, come on, the last generation said that about TV. The previous generation said that about radio. Before that, it was the printing press, right? You're going to let people other than the rich learn how to read? Okay, here's the difference. We watched TV growing up, right? There were advertisements, called them commercials, right? You could probably sing them. They're so ingrained in you, right? We all know all of those commercials. Plop, plop, fizz, fizz, oh, what a release it. Because it's just ingrained, right? Here's the difference. We watched TV. We watched commercials. Now, the TV watches you. The commercials watch you. It's like that Alka-Seltzer commercial with the plop, plop, fizz, fizz. And there's a guy in the TV going like this. Tommy got up and went to the refrigerator. We did something wrong. He's not sticking around for the ad. Tweak it. That's what's happening today. Do you understand? The kids are being watched in every single thing that they do. But who are they being watched by? Right? And what are those people going to do to your kids? Or our grandkids? You know what? If you didn't do a great job raising your kids, right? I'm not picking on anybody but me. If you didn't do a good enough job raising your kids, and I don't mean because they do drugs or whatever, but if you just don't think you hit it out of the park as a dad, well, then be a damn good grandpa, right? Don't take this opportunity to do better this time, because I'll tell you something right now. I don't think you got a clue how dangerous this puppy is. I don't think you have a clue. The amount of dopamine that this thing is going to give is 2.5%. So, if you take kids from 2 years old to 18 years old, right? You got boys, you got girls, right? And I'm not going to get into you might have everything in between. Just boys and girls. Let's stick with that. Okay, boys who have antisocial behavior. I don't mean like, you're a convict, you're going to prison. Just any kind of antisocial behavior between boys. You know how that manifests itself? Physically. Boys have fist fights. They shove each other down. They get in each other's face. They bow up. Now, you can talk about studying this all the way back to animals and male animals or whatever. But the bottom line is that's what happens. So that doesn't translate onto this. You can't beat the piss out of somebody with a telephone or a computer. Girls, on the other hand, if they have antisocial behavior, it is not manifested itself physically. They do what is called reputation attacks or reputation destruction. That translates to the internet. It does. Do you know that teens who take their own lives, it is up like it has never been since social media. And in almost every case, there's a story associated with it, right? You've got people talking about how their kid was getting picked on online or their kid was doing this online. The girls can be brutal to one another. Guys do it too. But that's not within the wheelhouse of what normally happens. This thing allows any behavior to be amplified. Let me give you an example. You're scrolling through your phone, right? And you're just looking at all of the different things. And you see an ad or a story or anything else that says 5 people murdered in California in a cartel-style killing. Do you go buy that? Seriously. Do you go smoking on by that? You don't. And I know you don't. You know I know? Because the statistics say that we are far more likely to stop on a negative story than a positive story. So a negative tweet is more likely to get retweeted than a positive tweet. So what does the algorithm do? The algorithm doesn't think, people. It acts like it does, right? Because it's artificial intelligence. But it's not thinking. It's reacting. And what it's saying is, these people dig hate. Push it. Push it. Push it as far out as you possibly can. Hate sells, right? Love doesn't. It doesn't, right? Atheism sells, right? Belief in God doesn't. Look at all of the things. Well, who decided that? Well, it wasn't the parent. This is becoming the parent. I said something the other day. If you don't think this thing is a drug, and it is, they even discussed it. I'm not kidding. You can look it up. It's easy to look up. Silicon Valley designed social media to be a drug. Problem is, so did everybody else, right? Facebook came out. You know why MySpace isn't here? Because it wasn't designed like a drug. Plain and simple. Thank you, Paula. Plain and simple, it's gone because it wasn't addicting, right? So when they saw Facebook come along, and everybody and their brother was posting and posting and posting and hitting like and hitting like and commenting and commenting. I got 65 likes. I got 37 comments, right? When that started to happen, what happened? Everybody popped out of the woodwork. You can retweet, right? Or you can share a tweet. You can do everything. Has taken the entire world and put it on the top of one pinhead. And it has made it so that our kids are now influenced by people they are never going to know, they are never going to meet, right? That should have nothing in their life as any kind of influence. Prior to social media, you would meet somebody and you'd go, you know what? That person's great. We had a tribe. 8, 10 people, 15 people, right? How many friends do kids have? Growing up, I think I had 4 that were like really in my inner circle. That was my tribe. That's who you hung out with. And if your friend got New Balance sneakers, you thought, you know what? New Balances are kind of cool. I might want to wear New Balances. Well, now they're getting the exact same thing from the Kardashians. All right? And the algorithm will tell you if it's cool or not. How many likes did it get? How many people looked at it? Did it get retweeted? People, the danger in this device is 40-fold. Right? 40-fold. So between 2.5 to 3.5 is going to be the dopamine hit that your kid gets off of using social media. Right? That's exactly what this thing is going to deliver. Now, the trouble becomes this. I'm a heroin addict. Right? I was addicted to heroin for a very long period of time. Now, call it 30 years, for lack of a solid number, call it 3 decades. During that 3 decades, I experimented with every other drug you could think of. It's a bad term, it really is, but it's the only one that everybody can relate to. I did every other drug. I tried every other drug. I abused every other drug. And you know what I found? That in spite of the fact they did the exact opposite of what I was looking for, I could get addicted to it. I mean, like that. Why do you think that is? Now, I'm not talking to the normies in the room. I'm talking to you. I'm talking to the drug addicts in the room. Why do you think it is that a heroin addict could get addicted to cocaine? Why do you think a cocaine addict could get addicted to heroin? Why do you think an alcoholic, right, could get addicted to cocaine? Because they are not doing the same thing. In fact, they are doing such different things that you would not believe for a hot second that you could get addicted to both of them. It doesn't make any sense, does it? Unless it does. If your brain starts to understand this dopamine reward, right? The reward center of your brain goes haywire. And it starts to go, you know what? He successfully got off that crap. But we can get right back onto the rails to do the exact same thing, right? We'll give him some feel-good chemical. We'll wait a while. He'll feed us. Tell us when. We'll give him some more. He tells us when. We give him some more. What if every single person in the country or the world at the age of, say, 10 or 11 gets one of these? And they spend 4 or 5 hours a day on it. They get addicted to social media. They've got Instagram, they got YouTube, they got they probably don't have Facebook, right? But they got Snapchat, they got 5 or 6 I've never heard of, and chances are you haven't either, right? And they're plugged into all of them. You ever have a conversation with a kid today? They go like this while they're talking to you, right? Thumbs blaring away. It's almost like They're now half cyborg. They're so plugged into these things that they can have a full conversation with you while tweeting unbelievable speeds. You get my daughter on the phone, and my daughter's, for all intents and purposes, she's almost out of it, right? She's closing in on the, leaving the teenage years. But if I need help with an app or something like that, I call my daughter. They are so intuitive. Kids are so intuitive with these things that if you download an app and you hand it to a kid, in 4 seconds, they'll know every single thing you need to know about how to make it work. This is their life. And from the time they're 11, their brain has been going, like that, have a little dopamine. Like that, have a little dopamine. Like that, have a little dopamine. The brain, by the age of 11 or 12, is going to understand what addiction is the same way we do. What do you think is going to happen to that child the first time they try drugs? Keep in mind, this is 2 to 3 times the dopamine rush of baseline. But the brain is already addicted to it. What do you think is going to happen the first time the kid tries meth? What do you think is going to happen the first time the kid tries anything and gets a dopamine rush considerably bigger than the 2.5, which, by the way, by the time they've been on this 2 or 3 years, do you realize what they got to come across in order to get that rush? Now, a couple of things happen. Number one, they need more and more and more to get the same effect, right? This is tolerance. It happens with any drug, and this is a drug. They admitted it. Okay? So tolerance becomes, so they got to stay on this thing twice as long, or they got to look at things that are either way more disturbing than they ever were, way funnier than it ever was, or way more degenerate. I'm not kidding. You know, when we were kids, we looked at Playboy, right? Boys, by the time we were, 10, 11, 12, you might have seen a Playboy. Children now, by the time they're 13, have seen bestiality. Sorry. I try to bum anybody out, but it's a stone cold fact. By the time a kid is a teenager, there is nothing explicit on this planet that they haven't seen. And very often, especially for boys, porn becomes an addiction before they're even in their mid-teens. And like everything else, that dope hit starts going down and down and down. And they got to keep looking at stuff that's either what? I mean, sex, you run out. Unless you start going for violence, or unless you start going for things that are just so depraved. I read several articles about people that get arrested the very first time they ever type in child pornography. And there are psychiatrists who are saying a lot of these people probably aren't pedophiles. They probably actually don't have that illness. But they just have looked at everything else. The evil and the danger of this puppy cannot be explained in an hour. It can't be explained in a year. It can't be explained in a lifetime. But you're going to watch it. You're going to watch it. And there's no getting around it. Technology is doubling at such a speed. Regulation went like this. Man, if we try to regulate this puppy, we are going to stifle all technology. So the other option was, let it all hang out. You do whatever you do. And now we are trying to go like this and shove the genie back in the bottle. So you could call your congressman, right? You could write letters to your president. It's not going to do a damn thing. It's too late. I'm not trying to be a downer. I'm keeping it real. The only hope now is to save your kid, to save your grandkid. If you think I'm wrong, take this away from a kid for 3 hours. Make them give me the phone. Take the phone from the kid. 3 hours. Watch the behavior. For real. Then watch any video or real video or even a drama about a heroin addict waiting for the dope to get there. And tell me the difference. They'll itch. Watch a kid for 3 hours without a phone. All of the things that you see, the self-hugging, all of the affectations that you see from a stone cold drug addict, you are going to see in a 13-year-old girl that doesn't have her phone for 3 hours. God forbid you try to take it away for a weekend. But you know what you need to do? You need to take it away for a weekend. You need to start setting structures. You need to start setting times. All of this needs to be done. Now, I'm not trying to bum anybody out. I'm really not. But this has to be talked about. It has to be. So, one of the things about us growing up, you heard bad news, right? You heard horror stories. The first time you heard about the Manson killings, you were like, oh my God, right? They did what? Or you hear about these unbelievable... This thing it has been called, since I started getting online, they've called this thing an echo chamber, right? Right now, all of you are here, you knew a pretty good idea what Captain Tommy was going to be talking about, right? And you're willing to listen to what I'm talking about. So there is a formula, so to speak, on the lifeboat, right? Or on Marfugel, or on anywhere you go. You go to Wages World, you know what he's going to be talking about. He's going to be talking about solar weather, right? So you're going to hear what you want to hear. That's an echo chamber, right? Nothing wrong with an echo chamber. There really isn't. Trouble is this. This ain't an echo chamber. It's an amplifier. So you heard about the bad news and you heard about the scary stories. Now, if you type in, tell me about the Manson murders. Well, below that's going to list every other horrendous murder that has ever taken place, right? They're all there. It amplifies whatever the hell you're looking up. It's going to bury you in information you weren't looking for. Did you ever get down a rabbit hole and go, how did I end up here? This is a true story, man. And I won't say, it doesn't matter because you'll figure out who it was. But I mean, I had one close friend, right? And I remember calling him once sick. And he was supposed to come by with the dope, right? I used to give my stuff to him at the end of the night because I didn't have the willpower. If I had 2 pounds, I would try to go through it before the morning. So I would take whatever I had and I would give it to him and he would come back in the morning and get me well. So I called him at 9 a.m. and I'm like, man, get over here, right? I don't feel good. Well, at 10, he lives 10 minutes away. At 10, he's not here. So I call him back. I'm like, hey, man, what's going on? Get over here. This went on for hours. Until I finally called him and said, I'm going to kill you. Like, I'm not playing. I'm going to kill you. And he's like, I'll be there. I'm walking out the door right now. I'm like, I'm going to hear that door shut and lock. And when he came over, I swear to you, I said, you want to tell me why the hell I'm here sick for 3 hours? And I actually laughed, probably because the dope was already there. And if you're an addict, you know what I'm talking about. But he said, midget clown porn. I was like, what? He said, midget clown porn. Now, do you think he typed that in? I think he went online and said, I want to look at midgets, having intercourse while dressed as clowns. They're going to steer you into places you never thought of going. Do you understand what this means? It means that once you're addicted, they're going to change your personality. Once you're addicted, they're going to change your views. And I don't mean how many people watch the video. I mean, they're going to change if you think capitalism is good or communism is good, right? Or God is good. They're going to determine what you like and don't like after they get you addicted. Think I'm wrong? Do you? Do a little research. Now, again, I'm not trying to bum anybody out, but right now, I'm the mayor of Realville. People, I'm no genius, man. I'm not. I'm a damn good parrot. Like, I can learn something and then tell you about it. But it didn't take me 6 weeks to learn this. It would be nice if it did. This stuff is scratch the surface stuff. Anybody that wants to learn this can learn this. And if you go down the rabbit hole of what that damn thing can do to you, it will scare you to death. Now, it always seems hypocritical to come on here and talk about how bad social media is because I'm on social media, right? Wrong. I'll tell you why. We're 44 minutes and 32 seconds into this, right? I'm no quick hit of dopamine, people. If I was, this channel would be a hell of a lot bigger. Believe that. Do you know how many people have advised me? Dude, make 6-minute videos, man. You're an idiot. Get on there, do 6 minutes of don't do drugs, be a better person, try to make yourself better, and then jump off. and your channel will grow so much faster. Well, you know what? It's not why I'm here. It's not why I'm here. Thank God. Right? I start going down that road, people, man, call me on it. Don't let me become that person. I'm here because we're dying as drug addicts, and there's not a lot of people out there to help. And I need this. You know, Vicky Brooke left a message, a comment, and I commented on it. And the whole backstory, but she said, you know what? I was thinking about you personally. She said, when is the last time? She said, you're helping somebody with this video, or you're commenting, or you're counseling somebody. When was the last time you did something, just for fun, or you did something just for you? And I said to her, I'm going to have to get back to you on that. And she wrote, that's what I thought. But I want you to know something. I didn't know how to word it. But the simplest way to say that is 46 minutes and 1 second ago was the last time I did something for me. I promise you, these videos, I'm glad that they're helping people, but trust and believe I'm doing this because it keeps me sober. I'm doing this because it keeps me focused. I'm doing this because I'm meeting incredible people from my tribe, right? People I don't have to worry about. Now, I know that this is not a pretty picture for the kids, and it's going to get worse, people. I'm really sorry, but we got to do this, right? It's a one-shot deal, but we're going to do it. We're going to get it done right now and then share the hell out of this so I don't have to keep doing it. People are turning their kids loose on the internet as an average, right? And I don't mean early exposure. I mean let them loose under the age of 11. How's that? And our Surgeon General has just said, don't do that until they're at least 13, which of course makes him an idiot. For real, 13? I'm sorry. And if you're letting your kids loose, I have a feeling people on the lifeboat are probably looking, because dope does open your eyes if nothing else. But I'm going to tell you something. There is a channel on YouTube. Have you ever heard me promote channels of anybody that wasn't on the lifeboat? Right? Not really my get down, is it? Okay. You should stop by and see this channel if you got kids. Plain and simple. The channel is called Bark, as in what a dog does, right? Bark. Okay. Bark is a group of people that I'm sure everybody has seen Predator Hunters or any of those people. And they're fascinating. They're fun to watch because it's good to see bad people get arrested or bad people get harassed, right? And it gets us a dopamine hit. And I'm not bad-mouthing, I dig those. I love watching those guys get abused. They deserve it. Bark is a little different. They do the same thing. Sorry. They do the same thing. But they do it for an educational purpose. Not that the guys aren't getting in trouble, because they sure as hell are. But what they're doing, they're trying to open eyes. And Bark started by coming up with a child. They were going to create one from scratch. And I want to tell you something. That's not an easy thing to do. To create a child from scratch. Can't use a picture of another child, right? You don't want to turn that child into, an object of affection for weirdos or any such thing. So they took a woman who was in her 30s, and they took digital pictures of her, and through magic of the computers and all that, they started to do age regression. They started to make this girl who was in her 30s look like she was in her teens. So they took this woman, airbrushed out the wrinkles, got rid of any stretch marks, and I mean these and any oddities in skin pigmentation. You know how when you're a kid, your skin's flawless and there's nothing wrong with you, and then you end up looking like this. They turned this woman into a 15-year-old girl who they called Libby. And she had an entire social media identity. She had other friends that they could look at. Comments had been left on her posts, all of these things. To create something so that you get an idea. If you have a 13-year-old girl, what kind of danger are we looking at? right? And this was the air quotes experiment that they were trying to do. So Libby went live, right? They had the profile built, all that. Boom. Throw the switch. Now Lily is a 15-year-old girl, and she's out in the real world. 7 people approached her inappropriately in the first hour. Within 9 days, that number turned into 92. And it wasn't just, hey, so you're online. You know what? I'm an old guy. If there's no excuse for somebody in their 40s or 50s to be talking to a 15-year-old. But if that's all they were doing, it would be disturbing. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about guys sending images of their penis within a matter of minutes. In fact, the people at Bark thought, you know what? Maybe it's just that 15 is so close to 18, right? I mean, it is. It's 3 years. And maybe they looked at this Libby and thought, you know what? I thought she was older than she was, or I didn't bother reading down into this. So they made another profile. Now, at this point, it's taking 6 people to pretend to be Libby because of how many people are trying to get her. They had to move out of the building they were into a whole, their own facility just to handle the amount of traffic of sick bastards over the age of 18 trying to get at kids. Sorry, not sorry. Their next creation was named Bailey. She was 11. Scared of the dark. I'm not making that up as part of the profile. She was still afraid of the dark. Never had a boyfriend. All of this was part of the profile. And you can see in the documentary that when they go live with Bailey, they put on the timer. Now, any of you who have ever done a challenge with a pepper know what I'm talking about, right? You hit the timer on your phone, and you see a green or a blue number, and it starts counting down. Well, this one looked like a stopwatch, right? Because it's timing it to the 100th of a second. So it's, right? Inside of the first minute, this 11-year-old was being approached. It took 1 minute and 7 seconds for the first inappropriate contact to be made by an adult trying to hit on an 11-year-old girl. I'm going to say that one more time, right? You might be talking amongst yourselves. That's the lifeboat. I get it. And I'm not bummed out about it. That's why we're here. But I want you to hear this, people. So eyes up here for a second. It took 1 minute and 7 seconds for someone to try to make an inappropriate contact, right? A pedophile with an 11-year-old. How's that? Within 5 minutes, somebody had video phone called her, wanted to talk to her. Within 5 minutes. As a country, this is a babysitter. I don't know about the rest of the world. I can't comment to it. But in our country, we plug our kids into this and shove them in another room. We don't have to worry about it, right? What's the big deal? And when they go out and talk to parents, there's an incredible interview on Bark. Check the channel out. They don't have a ton of videos. You can check them all out in a day. BARK. In the interview, they're talking to one parent after another. And they say, do you fear for your kid? Yeah, I wouldn't let her walk to the store. Not alone. You get raped, you get kidnapped in the world we're in? No way would I let my kid walk to the store. And it's one parent after another. And then they cycle through, start at the beginning again and go, well, are you more worried about this stuff online or out in the real world? To a parent. Their response was, well, you know what? No one can physically attack them online. So I'm more worried about the real world. Out there, somebody can physically attack them or they'd have to fight them off. Man, I got news for you. Your kid is safer walking to the store than they are being left in a room with a computer alone. You don't want to Google. You do not want to Google the number of rapes and deaths that have been caused by people that met underage girls on this. Don't. You'll thank me. Seriously, don't. Don't go down that rabbit hole. I did it for an hour. And I'll tell you something, my baseline dopamine has never been lower. Don't look into it. But we don't think twice about letting our kid or our grandkid have an account on any of these platforms. Zen Wen, thank you, honey. Are we at that 1 week mark, Zen? Thank you so much. I appreciate it. I really do. Your generosity is over the top. It's so consistent and it's just too kind. The number of people who use this thing as a weapon to hunt children is horrifying. And you know what, people? I was this close to making an account on TikTok just to see. I just can't bring myself to do it. But the stuff that I read said it's worse than all of them. That it is hands down worse than all of them. And the greatest AI on the planet. The most high-tech artificial intelligence on the planet is just trying to screw your kid up on TikTok. We're a drug channel, right? And I'm sure there are people who are going to go, why the hell are you talking about it? Because this is a drug. And if you don't got that at this point, then you're in trouble. Worse, your kids and your grandkids are in trouble. If you don't realize how dangerous this thing is, send me an email and I will send you in the direction that I will just tell you the how I did my dive. Because I have 1 hour to talk about this and I could do it for 6 without a problem. First of all, 4 or 5 of the stories were so horrific I can't tell them here. 2 of the stories were so horrific I couldn't finish them. And I spent 10 years in federal prison. We think about this thing and the unbelievable power of this to make life better. Trouble is this. You're having a conversation, right? You're focusing. It used to be about communication back and forth. When we were kids, you'd go outside, grab the neighbor, right? You'd go down the street, look for the next neighbor, right? Kids don't have sex now until they're in their 20s. Why? Because it's all right here. You don't need any of that crap. It's all right here. They're not getting their driver's licenses. They're not going to proms. Why? Because this is a drug. And it's in my pocket. I got it at night. I'm under the covers. No matter where I am, this goes with me. I don't have to buy it. I don't have to chase it down. It's right here. It's everything that we did, and it's right here. You can't have a conversation with a kid. So, tell me about what you're doing. Well, this weekend we were supposed to go and we're talking about going surfing, man. It was so cool. You know, I've never surfed before. That guy I used to watch, what the hell's that guy's name? Hold on a second. Oh, yeah. You can't have a conversation with a kid because they don't memorize anything. They don't think thoughts. They don't have to. This thing will fill in the gaps. Right? That'll fill in the gaps. We memorized crap. Who was the pitcher in the 1985 World Series? And 4 guys at the table would argue about it. What was the name of the of the dog on that cartoon show? 5 guys would argue about it. Now the kid goes, oh, hold on a second. And every single conversation is broken into 70 segments because someone's got to friggin' Google something before they can finish a sentence. Watch 2 kids talk. They don't even look at each other when they talk. I'm not kidding you. You watch kids talk, they don't look at each other anymore. Because you got to take their eyes off the damn phone. That's not going to happen. What? Yeah. You get the head, you know what I mean? Take it away from them for 3 hours. See what happens. And if they're pacing the room and doing what I'm talking about, you're going to hand it back to them? How about restricting the amount of time they're allowed to do social media? How about not giving phones unlimited access to a kid who's 13 or 11? When they put up Lily, is it Lily or Libby? I'm sorry, Libby. When they put up Libby, the 15-year-old, the first contact they got from an individual, from a man, the first contact, the person's avatar, the picture, was a penis. 15-year-old. That was the first contact. No picture of a guy. His Johnson. People, we're at the top of the hour. If you had any idea how hard this was to cut to 60 minutes, the world that we live in has, our country, 330 million people in it. How many do you think are addicted to this? How easy is it to go from one addiction to another? How easy is it to get every single kid in the country addicted to TikTok, right? And then send over a drug that can kill them so that when they transfer off of this addiction to the next one, where you say, oh, they do that in their country. Everybody's on this phone. In their country, this thing teaches calculus. Think they're getting addicted to that? In their country, this teaches history. It teaches science. It teaches math. In our country, you can get masturbation videos when you're 12. You can get guys sending you pictures of their junk when you're 11. The only hope for our kids is their parents and their grandparents. Nobody else is going to do anything. There isn't. They're not. It's too late. Genie's out of the bottle. And you know how long it's going to be before we realize the damage that this is doing? Do you? Me either. I don't think anybody can answer that. No idea. We won't know. 20 years from now? 30 years from now? Who knows? All right? Birth rates are down horrendously worldwide. No one's having sex. Crazy, right? Crazy. Why? Well, because they're addicted. They're on dope full time. It's in their hands. You don't have to score it. You don't have to call the dope man. In fact, mom and dad hand it to you when you're 9. You never got to worry about it again, huh? Just keeps feeding it until it doesn't. And then you go try the first substance that anybody ever hands you, and magically you're addicted to it in about 2.2 seconds because your brain has been training to be a junkie from the time you were 9. Not a feel-good show. My hat's off to all of the people fighting the good fight in terms of staying sober, and I'm not trying to bum any of you out. This is an ugly show. It really is. It's an ugly show. You know the only shining spot, people? Do you? When I turn this off, it's probably going to be about 130, 100 and somewhere in there that have seen it. If we're lucky, maybe 120, 130. Before it's done, we might have 400 or 500 a couple of weeks out. But you got a better chance of understanding what I just said than the rest of the planet. You get it. The beautiful thing is, if you're hearing my voice, it's not because you're a normie. And the people who are going, he's a nut, have never been addicted to anything. You get it. You people have an insight the rest of the world doesn't have. Sadly, that comes with a bit of responsibility. You don't have to do what I do, but you got to share this video today. Keep in mind, I can see which ones of you do. And my hat's off to all of you that share. I love you. I really do. It means a lot to me. But you know something? You know someone with a kid? Right? Do you have any affection whatsoever for that kid? Do you like them in any way, shape, or form? Then somebody needs to tell their parents what's going on. Because if it isn't dope and it's not predators, then it's the damn phone itself. Social media, dope, and predators are going to destroy our kids. Tomorrow night, I will be back at the same squirrel time, same squirrel channel. I'll have a big smile on my face. And I promise you, people, I'm not letting this drag me down tonight. I'm not. It's not a happy subject, but I'm not letting it drag me down. I'm just going to fight a little harder. I'm going to get this info into the hands of the people that need it. You know, I'll talk about this once or twice a month, right? There are people who, thank you, Barbara, there are people that are taking the message and running with it. A lot of you, and it means the world to me. You guys are my heroes. All right? Somebody, someday, is going to see this and go, I can do it better than that guy. And then there's going to be, it's going to happen, people. You watch. It's a ripple, right? Be the ripple. Do it in a good direction. I'm Captain Tommy Scoble. I will see you tomorrow on the deck of the lifeboat. And this is a cat in a basket. Good night, everybody. You know I love you.